Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting on Thursday, the 23rd of May. We are a hybrid meeting, and I'm going to go straight into the agenda. So the first item then is apologies for absence. So we've got Councillor Liz Burnett, who's actually on business elsewhere today, so can't actually be here. And I think everybody else is here.
Yep, everybody else is either present in the chamber or online.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So then the second item is minutes of the meeting, which was held on the 25th of April 24. We've got them all in our papers here or online, so I'd like to move those minutes. And Councillor Gwyn John to second.
Yeah, second.
Lovely, thank you. All right. So then the next item then is to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interest under the Council Code of Conduct. So do we have any?
There were no declarations of interest formally received for this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda, then we've got a few references. So I'm going to go to item number 4, which is this is the reference from the Governance and Audit Committee, which was held on the 11th of March. And this is in relation to the Corporate Risk Register Q3 update. So when that was presented, it was requested that Governance and Audit Committee review and recommend endorsement of the inclusion of the transition from the Welsh Community Care Information System, which is also known as the WCCIS, risk on the register via Cabinet. And then it also asked for the Governance and Audit Committee to approve and recommend to Cabinet then that the Brexit and COVID risks be removed from the register. So as I say, this went to Governance and Audit, and there was a good bit of discussion around that, and there was a question raised around about the addition of the WCCIS onto the risk register, and whether it was appropriate that it would actually appear at such a high level. And the head of resource management safeguarding did sort of give that explanation that the risk had significantly escalated over a relatively short period of time, with the risk significantly increasing, and this was due to the delays being experienced over the past 3 to 4 months. So the system provider previously outlined an initial plan which involved the transition of all 19 organisations onto the one system. And as there were significant concerns and objections raised across Wales, and because there was no consensus, the plan had to be revisited. So this meant then that the new plan had to go back to Welsh Government. Therefore, due to that change of strategy, the risk had escalated quite quickly due to those issues. For the project support for the Vale, or for the region, should I say, there was committee were also advised that there was a regional digital lead officer and who actually possessed that high level of expertise in dealing with procurement projects and implementation of major IT systems. So this would actually help with that. So there were further discussions and sort of comments around the report of Governance and Audit. And so it was resolved from that committee that the Q3 position of corporate risks, including the inclusion of the new risk related to the Wales Community Care Information Service, plus that removal of Brexit and COVID from the register, be noted. And then they actually referenced it back to Cabinet, so that we're advised as Cabinet then of the view of the Governance and Audit Committee that in relation to the procurement regulation risk, for that risk to be considered for inclusion on the register, or at least an update on the review, be added when appropriate. So I would actually, we've received those comments, and I would actually note that position then about the Q3 risk position. So are we happy to agree that? Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to
concur with what you've said there regarding the minutes and the meeting itself. I was able to listen into the scrutiny, and I'm pleased that they recognise, and it's a good comments that quite rightly so they need to check on why a risk would come in. It was explained in considerable detail about this system, the WICIS system, and it's a concern that's gone across several councils, and rightly so. We have changed some of the ways we're looking to move forward with this and utilise some of the procurement expertise that's available. Something which we as an authority know that we can improve on. So hopefully it's recognition of that, and so I'm happy to second this reference. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Eddie, for that. I don't see any dissent online or in the room, so we're happy to agree that. Thank you. So the next item then is item number 5. Again, this is a reference, but this is from Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee, which was held on the 11th of April 2024. So this is around the proposed social, emotional, mental health and wellbeing strategy 24 to 26. I understand, Councillor Birch, did you want to just take us through this?
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So the proposed social, emotional, mental health and wellbeing strategy 24-26 was a reference from Cabinet from the 7th of March, and it was presented at committee by the Head of Additional Learning Needs and Wellbeing. She began by advising that since as early as 2019, it became obvious that the key emerging challenge for schools was the increasing number of children and young people displaying very complex social, emotional and mental health difficulties, exacerbated by the impact of the pandemic and by ongoing adverse community and environmental events such as the cost of living and climate crisis. Therefore, to address this urgent need to work differently with people, young people and children, the Social, Emotional and Mental Health Action Plan 2019 to 22 was developed and implemented following extensive consultation and discussion with heads. Significant progress had been made in progressing this action plan, but there's much more to do. The importance of good emotional mental health and well-being had never been greater, and it required an ongoing focus. Therefore, the proposed social, emotional, mental health and wellbeing strategy 24-26, as presented to the committee, was a continuation of the strategic direction set in 2019, and it brought together all the aims, objectives, information and progress to date, as well as strategic actions being taken across the Learning and Skills Directorate and Vale of Glamorgan schools. The strategy aligns with the vision of the Council's corporate plan and would support the mental health and wellbeing of children and young people in the Vale and all those who worked with them. In conclusion, the officer apprised the committee on 7 key strategic priorities to operationalise this strategy, such as supporting schools to create inclusive, supporting, trusting and mutually respectful educational settings in which pupils and staff can thrive, working in partnership with the local authority human resources team, the Central South Consortium and voluntary sector to enhance staff wellbeing, support schools to meet the needs of all its learners and their families by ensuring that partnership working is well developed and effective, work with a range of partners to mitigate the impact of economic hardship on children and young people and their families in order to support good physical and mental health, work with partners to ensure that children and young people are supported in living a healthy lifestyle that enhances their physical and mental well-being, in partnership with the consortium and other key partners, support educational settings to deliver a transformative health and wellbeing curriculum, develop and commission high-quality services and provision to support learners and their families, while developing more specialist provision for those with complex social, emotional and mental health difficulties. So the presentation was met with very general approval from the committee. There were quite a few questions raised about things like counselling, cooperative working across authorities and with health authority, how schools were carrying out audits of young people and with the staff within the school in order to make sure that this strategy was going to meet their needs. And I think that when they came away, members of that committee and the co-opted members were confident that the strategy is going to meet the needs of children, young people and the staff and auxiliary staff that work with them. So I'd like to commend the report to Cabinet.
Thank you for that, Councillor Birch. I think there were some really interesting comments within that report, and it was, you know, it's obvious then that the interest that the members of the committee took around the subject, and I think there were some very positive comments around that. So I'm happy to second your, those recommendations.
Thank you.
And I think everybody else is happy. Yep, lovely, thank you. Okay, so the next item then is item number 6. So these are local bus services in the Vale of Glamorgan, and this was a request for consideration around bus services from Councillor Ewan Goodjohn and also Councillor Samantha Campbell. So this went to the Environmental Regeneration Scrutiny that was held on the 16th of April 2024. I went along as Cabinet member as well, and I think that there was some really interesting and good discussion around some of the issues that we're still experiencing. There have been some timetabling changes and amendments as well. And I know our officers are in constant dialogue with the bus companies to try and resolve some of those hiccups as and when they happen. So we're trying not to just wait until you know, a certain other time, but those tweaks will still take place as and when they can be accommodated as well. We also had a member of the public speak as well, who raised concerns around the bus provision then for Form 1 Road and the changes that had to be made there. And again, this was down to timetabling issues, but I know again that is under review, and about what further amendments can be made around that. There was lots of talk from other members, and also then the operational manager for transport services actually led us through that. And I think the one thing I can say is it's not a perfect fit, our bus services. I think we're all aware of that, and nobody more than me actually, because obviously I'm sitting on things like, or bodies like the Regional Transport Authority, that these issues are across Wales, and obviously there is further work, a huge amount of further work to do around this, and obviously the new paper from Welsh Government around the future franchising of our bus services, I think will be very much welcomed, I think, by everybody who uses those bus services. And I think it is important to note that things like the Barry Dock interchange, despite not many buses using it as yet, even though that is increasing, is that was a long time in planning by the time that actually came to fruition, and obviously it was all pre-COVID. There are still issues on the buses with people using the bus services post-COVID, and to try and get those numbers back up to where we were, to give people confidence actually to use our bus services, I think is obviously vitally important for the future of all bus services as well. So it was a very interesting discussion at the committee. I say I was there, and a couple of other cabinet members were there as well. And there were a few recommendations that came from that committee. That first one then about the Environmental Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, about receiving an update report in 6 months' time. And that should hopefully address some of the issues then in relation to the replacement local development plan in terms of bus routes and the council's plans for the housing developments. And then that report will also cover work being progressed by the Cardiff Capital Region City deal, and also about the regional partnership working across local authorities, as well as updates in relation to our Green Links bus service, which again we're looking for volunteers, or for more volunteers to actually make that service more widely available to people, particularly in the rural Vale. So the second recommendation that came from there was that, from the perspective of equalities, for consideration to be given around the accessibility of bus timetables, and whether that was something for the Council's Equalities Consultative Forum to be consulted upon. And then the outcome of any subsequent review to be included in the 6-month update report as per recommendation 1. So their third recommendation, obviously, with for those two recommendations to come back to it, or to come to us at Cabinet, and then also advise of the Scrutiny Committee suggestion for there to be further consideration around ways to connect homes and hospitals. And also, what did come through that discussion is about the issue of missing bus stops and bus interchanges stroke connections for Culverhouse Cross and Sycamore Cross. And then also we were advised about the committee suggestion for a summer marketing campaign to be held themed Catching the Bus. And I think there is going to be a big drive around that. Obviously, the programme for summer events is going out, and I know that there is going to be promotion then around using public bus services to actually, to travel around, obviously, in the summertime. So I'm happy to agree those recommendations, and I think the proposal about a 6-month review, I think, will be very timely, and I think I would welcome that going to Scrutiny Committee. So I'm happy to endorse those, and I'm obviously looking for somebody to second that report, those recommendations.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gwyn John. I think everybody's happy to support that in the room and online. Lovely, thank you very much. So then item number 7 then, so this is another, so this is a review of the Council's 2021 residential parking permit schemes. And this was a reference then from Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny, also on the 16th of April. So I think Mark, you were going to take us through this?
That's correct, Chair. Yeah, that's correct, Vice Chair. I mean, there's basically a good discussion that went on in that scrutiny meeting. There was lots of different varying viewpoints from various members. Some of it was mostly about parking enforcement, which we all would like to do more of, but we also have a resource issue, as you can appreciate. And obviously, what we're trying to do with the review of parking systems and procedures and these various places is trying to get it self-enforcing. And I think that's really, really important here. And that's what I tried to emphasise in importance. The other thing I also tried to emphasise at the meeting, well, it's very important that we engage fully with the local residents in those areas in particular, because that's the trick of making it self-enforcing, and that's really what we want. We know there were changes need to be made in Barry Island, notably around Big Crescent. And I know that I am presently discussing that with my officers to bring something to Cabinet in the future for further consideration to that. There was also a good discussion about other parts as well, in particular in Ogmore by Sea, where they recommended some additional signage, also additional enforcement patrols in the lakeside area, and also additional arrangements in the Whitehall's Nap area of Barry. And basically, what we like to do is obviously note those concerns. Obviously, we do have that in mind, those issues as well. And so far, I like to recommend that we note the views of the Scrutiny Committee. So thank you. I'm looking for a seconder.
Okay, and I'm happy to second those, that we note them. Well, thank you very much. Everybody else happy in the room and online? Yep, thank you. Okay, because we'll move on to item number 8. So this is a reference from Homes and Safe Communities, and this is around the local housing market assessment, commonly known as the LHMA, and this is 2023. So in relation to this, it's Section 8 of the Housing Act 1985 requires local authorities to undertake a review of their local housing market assessments every 2 years. Now, in 2022, Welsh Government issued the methodology by which they required local authorities then to carry out the LHMA reviews. So the Vale of Glamorgan LHMA was carried out using the methodology from Welsh Government, and then all the data was pulled out of that then, and that was in June 2023. Now, the sorry, just lost my place, beg your pardon. So this is around so that was saying about the assessment was carried out on a housing market area basis. And obviously then this is about meeting the need for our future housing, and obviously then in accordance then with obviously our affordable housing supplementary planning guidance, as well as the replacement local development plan. Now, obviously the previous one to that was in 2021, and that was followed in-house then at that time. But obviously with the new methodology, that also then, which is obviously a new online tool, and that was introduced then, which calculates the need for affordable housing over that 15-year period as well, 2022 right through to 2037. And then the need though is actually calculated in 2 phases. So in the first 5 years, the calculation factors in existing unmet need, as well as any newly arising need based on an increase in household formulation. And then the affordable housing need from these 2 elements is then offset against the projected reletting of existing stock, and then also planned new affordable housing supply. And obviously that will take in as well as the, as we're aware, the Vale of Glamorgan have actually got our own housing building plan within that as well. So in the remaining 10 years of the LHMA period, it's assumed that existing unmet need has been met. So it has to make that assumption. And therefore the need is based on newly arising need only. And so that's how it's actually set out then for those 15 years. So in addition to the review, a fundamental aspect of any LHMA is a calculation of the net need for affordable housing. And then estimates of shortfalls or surpluses of affordable housing in the different areas and obviously different sizes are obviously crucial then to actually input into those housing frameworks. So we've actually got a couple of recommendations that have come forward from the committee, and I'm going to move to those which are on page 3. So the recommendations is that obviously the scrutiny committee considers the local housing market assessment 2023, and that's obviously attached to Appendix A, and then refer their comments then to Cabinet for here today for approval. So, and then the Cabinet notes that we will be asked as Cabinet then to permit the Head of Housing and Building Services to make minor editorial changes to the document once approved, which I think makes a good housekeeping sense, and it gives that delegation for them to be able to do that. Sorry, this is the reference, right. No, that's... Okay, so, yes, please. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, just to explain, because there's a page missing from
Yeah,
the Chair's
missing.
papers there. So the reference that's actually there, which isn't from the recommendations from the report, the recommendations from the reference that were, having considered the LHMA attached to Appendix A, the following comment be referred to Cabinet as part of their consideration. The committee wished to highlight the importance of the council considering the provision of suitable housing for older persons, including retirement housing and housing with care, as referred to in the LHMA report, in order to address the growing shift to an ageing population within the Vale of Glamorgan and thereby future-proof the county's housing provision and related needs for residents. It was important that such considerations be fully embedded within council policies, strategies and planning, i.e. the Vale of Glamorgan Council's replacement local development plan. And there was a second recommendation that the committee note that the Cabinet would be asked to permit the Head of Housing and Building Services to make minor editorial changes to the document once approved. So they were the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And I do apologise. I suddenly realised I've actually had a page missing from my report, which totally threw me then. So I'm happy to move those recommendations. If we can have a seconder, please.
Hi. Yes, Chair. I'm happy to second these recommendations and second the reference. And I think, yes, this is an important document that we have in front of us and helps us to plan and to, sort of work towards building the affordable homes that we need that are both, sort of social rented and for help with people buying, with the house prices that we have within the Vale. There's the intermediate level as well, and it sets out within all the different areas within the Vale of what houses we need where and when. So I think it is a really important reference that we have there. So I'm happy to second this.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. I think, is everybody else happy in the room and online to endorse that? Lovely. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to move on to item number 9, which is the Cardiff Bay Advisory Committee, which was held on the 28th of February 2024. So I'm going to hand over then to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Yes, we had a very interesting meeting, our Cardiff Bay Advisory Committee. And what people got to understand here is that this committee is an advisory committee that produces lots of information about the whole Cardiff Bay sort of river systems effectively and linking it obviously with the barrage. So one of the things that we looked into, which I know the Cardiff Harbour Authority administer, is a dredging campaign. And the last dredging campaign occurred on the February 24th this year, and it removed something like 200 tonnes of waste. And that was mostly consistent of things like broken trees and Japanese knotweed, and that was being removed. But due to the nature of this waste, it has to be incinerated, as probably people understand, especially given the nature of Japanese knotweed. The other thing that we also discussed at this meeting was that the Cardiff Harbour Authority also undertakes an educational programme going around to schools, which mostly talks about things like pollution and also litter picking activities as well. And it's great to make people, young people especially, aware of the environmental issues that we all suffer, because we know that young people are very good at telling their parents, what they should be looking at, and also encourage a sense of community responsibility, which I think we all got to do, in order to improve and fight against climate change, which obviously is a very serious issue. The other thing that we also looked at was ongoing maintenance as well, Lock 3 and the fish pass. We had a good discussion about the different types of fish that go through the fish pass, and clearly there is still decreases in the number of fish going down, notably things like bass and mullet in particular, as well as other species. And obviously, it is a growing concern that the number of fish is decreasing, and we also think this is also due largely to climate change as well. But nevertheless, we do have that. The water quality there, I'm pleased to say, within the area is of good, and largely that's because of oxygenation levels are pretty good as well. We did find quite a bit of spawning going on, which is also a good sign for fish as well. And obviously, we also had a few pollution incidents that occurred, but again, we're managing those well. The Harbour Authority are doing lots of investigations about that in order to find the root cause of it. Sometimes we do, and sometimes they don't, but we're still ongoing. This is very much part of the work. So it's a really good meeting, and I'm happy that we note the minutes, and I'm looking for seconder.
Okay, and I'm happy to second those minutes, Mark. Thank you very much. Everybody else happy to agree? No dissent in the room or online? Lovely. Okay. So I'm going to move on to item number 10, which is the Shared Regulatory Services Joint Committee. So for this, I'm going to hand over to Ruba.
Thank you, Chair. This was the Shared Regulatory Services meeting from March this year. It was one of our quarterly meetings where the main topic of discussion was an overview and update of the work and service progress towards the Shared Regulatory Services business plans. And in that discussion, obviously we did discuss the financial challenges facing the service, and that's the impact directly on staff, and the head of service emphasised in that meeting that it was a major concern, and that SRS had issued a staff survey to all staff members so that they could better understand how staff were feeling. And sort of amidst all of that, we had some discussion of our new apprenticeship scheme, which the head of service has devised, and it's a really grow your own model where we're hoping to attract young people who can see a career with SRS and grow and develop them. So that is a bit of good news. But otherwise, it was really a discussion of activity in the last quarter. So I'm really seeking just for us to note this today, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to move that we that we note those minutes. Is everybody happy to agree that and online? Lovely, thank you. So I'm going to move on to item number 11. So this is an update then on the use of Chief Executive Emergency Powers, and this is since the last report then of the 11th of April 2024. So these are laid out in the report here, and as I said, so as just to note the following use of emergency Chief Executive's emergency powers since that last report on the 11th of April, and then on pages 2 through to 9 to 8. I can't count today, can I? Sorry about that. It actually lays out then the variety of use of those emergency powers, which includes housing refurbishment schemes, school transport, and repairs to schools, transport grants. So it's that wide breadth of use of emergency powers. So I would move that we note the use of emergency powers.
Be the second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor John. So I'm going to move on then to item number 12. So this is a report for the Cabinet Member for Public Sector Housing and Tenant Engagement, and this is the 2024 update to the Housing Support Grant Delivery Plan 2022 to 2025. So I'm going to hand over to Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. So it's, yes, the 2024 update to the Housing Support Grant Delivery Plan for 22 to 25. And Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee considered a report regarding the 2024 annual update, and also as well as the spend plan for the financial year 24 to 25. No comments were received, so it is necessary for Cabinet to consider and approve the plans prior to submission to Welsh Government. A copy of the scrutiny report is included in Appendix A. What I would like to do is just give a little bit of background to this. So an increased funding allocation was received from Welsh Government to fund housing related support services 24-25. This came with the expectation that sufficient funding be paid to support providers to ensure their support workers were paid the real living wage, and there was further negotiations that took place and contract sums were agreed. There is a need, to update the existing HSG delivery plan and submit a spend plan to Welsh Government outlining which services are to be funded during the financial year 24 to 25. And we have a, sort of a commissioning team who work with our providers to ensure that the partners that we do work with provide high quality support to our residents, and they also help maintain tenancies and dealing with homelessness issues. So some of the commission services that we deal with would be, for example, Llanmai, who are supporting young homeless people in residential settings and providing education and support for these young people to move on successfully when they are ready. Also, Pobble provide our one-stop shop on Halton Road, where Vale residents can get quality support and advice around the housing issues that they may be experiencing. And also Platform who work with people who are experiencing challenges with their mental health, and they provide a welcoming and supportive service, again helping people to progress and to move on when they're ready. And I will say, as a cabinet member, I had the pleasure of visiting all three of these providers, and to see to meet the staff there, and the service that they provide is second to none. So I'm happy to move the recommendations that we have on page 2, which they are that Cabinet considers and approves the update to the 2024 Housing Support Grant Delivery Plan 22-25, that Cabinet considers and approves the Housing Support Grant spend for 24 to 25, and that the use of urgent decision procedures as are set out in section 15.14 of the Council's Constitution be approved in order for the final Housing Support Grant Delivery Plan 22 to 25 to be referred to Welsh Government by the 31st of May 2024, deadline in accordance with the Housing Support Grant HSG conditions. And I move those.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to second those recommendations. And I think it's a very interesting report. Then it does, it highlights about the support that we provide around housing for some of our most vulnerable people. I'm happy to support that. And is everybody else happy? There's no comments from anybody else? No? Great, thank you. So then moving on to item number 13, which is a report of the Cabinet Member for Community Engagement, Equalities and Regulatory Services. And this is about the update to the Affordable Housing Supplementary Planning Guidance. So I'm going to hand over to Ruba.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a bit of a technical one, but the purpose of this supplementary planning guidance is to set out the Council's approach to delivering affordable housing through the planning system. So it sets out the Council's planning requirements and mechanisms for securing and delivering affordable housing within the Vale. And this particular SPG, supplementary planning guidance, updates and replaces the Council's previous affordable SPG, which you may recall, Chair, I think I brought to Cabinet in July 2022. So this has been produced to support the policies of the Vale of Glamorgan's local development plan, which addresses the affordable housing needs within the Vale. And we heard earlier about the latest local housing market assessment. So that will be part of the evidence that the SPG considers. So this SPG was prepared as background evidence to the public examination of the Vale of Glamorgan's local development plan. So following public consultation, the amended SPG was approved by Cabinet in 2017, which was to be used as material consideration in determining planning applications and appeals in the Vale of Glamorgan. And then following the review of the SPG, it was amended and approved again in 2018, and then, as I've just mentioned, in 2022. So specifically, this report seeks Cabinet approval to undertake a public consultation, a 6-week public consultation on proposed amendments to the supplementary planning guidance on affordable housing. And the most significant change is to the transfer values. And this is the discounted value that a social landlord will pay a developer for units that they're required to build as part of the Section 106 agreements. The Welsh Government figures that these transfer values are based on haven't been updated since 2021. So due to a change in methodology, this is being updated. So construction costs have increased since 2021, and there is a need to ensure that the figures remain up to date so that private developers can continue to deliver affordable housing through Section 106 agreements, whilst also being obviously at a level that social landlords can afford to pay. The values included in the amended SPG reflect increases to the original values in line with Welsh Government rent inflation, and a methodology for keeping these figures up to date is also set out. So there is an appendix to this, Chair. There are also some other changes to the document for clarity and to reflect updates to planning policy. And as I say, we've already discussed one of those, which is the local housing market assessment. So I've got three recommendations, Chair. And the first is that Cabinet approve the proposed amendments to the Affordable Housing Supplementary Guidance attached to this report for public consultation purposes. Secondly, that delegated authority be given to the Head of Sustainable Development to make any typographical or minor changes as necessary before public consultation. And thirdly, that a further report is presented to Cabinet following public consultation to report the findings of that consultation exercise and any changes to the SPG prior to, obviously, formal adoption of the SPG. So I'd ask for a seconder for that, Chair.
And I'm happy to second those recommendations. Thank you. As you said, it is quite a technical report with a lot of information. And obviously, we look forward to that coming back to Cabinet with the findings of that consultation. So everybody else happy to agree those recommendations? Lovely. Thank you. So item 14, which about any urgent items part 1, of which I do not have any. And then item 15, which are any items which we have which are urgent under part 2, and we have none of those either. So it just gives me just time to say thank you for everybody for attending the meeting and joining us today. And we shall just wait now for the officer to confirm that the meeting has the meeting